Have you ever been in that place before where you're trying to live like Christ, but you're just struggling with sin and you can't seem to find a way out? You want to in the deepest part of you, but you just feel stuck and you feel hopeless. And it reminds me of what Paul said in Romans 7, where he said the things that he doesn't want to do, he does, and the things that he wants to do, he doesn't do, because there's a battle between the spirit and the flesh inside of us. There is hope to break free from this. And if you have a desire to want to, that's a great place to start. I'm going to give you an illustration. Imagine that good fruit, walking in obedience, righteousness, is represented by this piece of fruit. Now, imagine that you came over here to a tree. And imagine if you stuck this fruit on this tree with tape or something like that. Does that make it a fruit tree? Of course not, because it can't produce fruit naturally on its own. But if you were to look at a fruit tree, you will see that it produces fruit naturally on its own all over the place. And that's why it is a fruit tree, because its very nature is to produce good fruit. And this gives us a clue into how to live this life. Really, what we need to do is to stop focusing on the fruit, the external, stop trying to focus on trying to do more good things, but rather focus on making the tree right. And when you make the tree right, it will produce fruit naturally. So what does this mean? It means getting alone with God, being in prayer and the Word. But you're not in the Bible to look for principles to apply to your life, but rather you're looking to see who God is. You're looking at passages about the fear of the Lord, about how serious God is about sin, and you're also looking at passages about His mercy and His grace and what He's done on that cross. And as you do this, all of a sudden, you'll get a greater revelation of who He is. It might not happen at first, but if you persist in doing this over and over, all of a sudden God will give you a greater revelation of who He is. You're also looking for passages of your identity in Him, who you are in Him. And then all of a sudden your perspective is transformed and you are seeing things out of a completely different place, out of the eyes of the Spirit. And all of a sudden you're living naturally like Christ. Because your faith has increased, and as your faith has increased, His grace has come in and it's transformed the way that you see things. And because you see things differently, that's your identity and you're living out of that place. That's the key to transformation. So I know that you might be in the place where you think, I've tried this, Matt, and it just doesn't work. But I want to tell you that if you can do this, if you can persist in doing this, even when you don't feel like it, and you're getting alone before God, and you're going to the scriptures to see who He is and who you are in Him, He will meet you in that place and He will give you a revelation that will transform you. It will transform the tree, and the tree will produce fruit naturally. Think about it. If you're focusing on who you aren't, if you're focusing on your failure, if you're focusing on what you've done wrong, what you have done, what you haven't done, that becomes your identity and you live out of that place. But if you're focusing on who He is and who you are in Him, you're completely transformed. You're living from a different place. You're not believing those lies anymore. You're believing the truth of His Word, and the truth of His Word transforms you. I actually did a video on this on my other channel, Line of Fire Ministries, which was a more scripted, edited production style video where I go into more detail about this and break it down a bit for you. If it's something that you're struggling with and you're really wanting some more answers in a very practical video, that's a great one to check out. I'm going to put it in the pinned comment and then in the description below. I'm not sure where you're at, friends, in this particular journey, but I want to tell you that there is hope and that there is a way forward, and that God's promises are also God's enabling, His provision, and His grace is enough. And even if you've failed up until this point, don't let that define you. Find your identity in Him, in who He is and what He has done for you and who you are in Him. Check out that video in the pinned comment, and I'll talk to you very soon. God bless you.